Long before Pastel ever touched his easel, Léon Lhermitte was already famous for something quieter, his draftsmanship. Critics and fellow artists alike singled out his charcoal drawings for a quality that is deceptively hard to achieve, which is true tonal range. Where many draftsmen relied on line to carry a composition, Lhermitte built form out of value and chiaroscuro, out of the slow accumulation of light and dark, until a page of black chalk could feel as atmospheric and as structurally sound as an oil painting. Author Frederick Henriette, no small judge of draftsmanship, admired him precisely for this. The sense that Lhermitte drew the way other men painted. That gift for tone was not incidental to what came later. It was the foundation. Lhermitte's public reputation, however, was built first in oil and built on the monumental. His salon paintings of rural labour, imaginative, carefully staged scenes of harvesters, wage payers, and field hands, gave him the kind of institutional success that few painters of peasant subjects ever achieved. Works like Le Pays des Moissonneurs, The Harvester's Pay, were exactly the sort of ambitious, large-scale statement pieces the salon rewarded, serious in subject, ample in scale, and unimpeachable in craft. That success did something important beyond making him well known. It gave him standing as a painter of consequence, not mere novelty, and that standing bought him room to experiment. It's worth remembering that Pastel, in the Paris of the 1880s, was having a moment of its own. Degas had already shown what the medium could do outside the nursery and boudoir associations it once carried, using it for movement, for unfinished-looking immediacy, for colour laid down in ways uniquely its own, on paper or canvas, having its own unique look, feel, and character. The founding of the Société des Pastelistes Français in 1885 gave the medium institutional legitimacy it had lacked, and serious painters began to treat pastel not as a sketching tool, but as a finished statement in its own right. He was already a master of tonal drawing, and was perfectly positioned to follow that current. Pastel let him work faster than oil. There was no waiting on drying times, no elaborate underpainting, no weeks of studio waiting between conception and finished object. A composition could go from observation to resolution in a single sustained sitting. For an artist already carrying the weight of salon-scale oil commissions, that speed and economy of means was its own kind of freedom. There was also, frankly, a marketing logic to it. Collectors who admired his monumental oils but couldn't necessarily afford a salon-scale canvas found in his pastels a way in, smaller, more intimate, less expensive, but unmistakably by the same hand, carrying the same authority of tone that had made his reputation in the first place. Pastel became, for Lhermitte, as for Degas before him, both an artistic expansion and a shrewd answer to a growing appetite among buyers for accessible finished works by major names. But the real story isn't that Lhermitte turned to pastel for convenience or commerce. It's that he turned out to be extraordinarily suited to it, arguably more suited to it at times than to oil. His great and lifelong subject was rural labour, the devoted working people of the French countryside, gleaners, harvesters, blacksmiths, fisherfolk, seen not as picturesque staffage, but as the actual subject of real picture-making. And that subject, it turns out, is almost tailor-made for what pastel does best. Pastel rewards gesture and summary. It rewards the fleeting court pose, the exact angle of a bent back, the particular slump of exhaustion at the end of a day's work, the loose choreography of a group of labourers, arranged not concocted by a director, but by the logic of the real-life task itself. Lhermitte's rural subjects gave themselves to his compositions on their own terms. Working people did not need coaxing into a pose. They were already in the middle of their labour, arranged into exactly the kind of unstudied, truthful groupings a studio model could never replicate easily. Pastel let Lhermitte capture that truth on the spot, or close to it, with none of the elaborate staging that large oil compositions demanded, because scale has differing principles involved. The medium's directness matched the directness of his subject matter. And because his hand had already been trained for decades on the problem of tonal relationships, how to make a mark read as light, as movement, as atmosphere, he brought to pastel a control that many pastelists, working purely for colour effect, seldom developed. His pastels have structure and poise. They have the structure of his charcoal drawings underneath the colour. That combination is what made his pastels so compelling to other artists, not only to collectors. It's one thing to charm a buying public. It's another to make painters stop and look closely at your technique and the secrets of its making. Lhermitte's broken colour macchia, the way pigment sits unblended on the paper, stroke applied against stroke, tone built up rather than smoothed over, was exactly the kind of pigment handling that fellow artists found genuinely delightful. There is a difference in a pastel stick in seeing colour used with that much confidence and that little fuss. Nothing overworked, nothing precious, every mark doing real work, allowing the underneath tooth of ground to aid the process. In the end, Lhermitte's pastels weren't a lesser branch of his studio practice or a mere commercial sideline. They were the place where his particular gifts, a draftsman's sense of drawing and tone, a lifelong devotion to his muse, the rural labourer, and an instinct for capturing people exactly as he found them, raw, unfiltered, in real life, and above all, sincere, came together most naturally. It's little wonder that, more than a century later, those pastels remain some of the most sought-after and most studied works he ever made, a choice for our benefit and joy. And finally, be sure to check out our eBook collection for your library archives. In this format, you can easily enlarge the images to see exactly how each picture looks, up close, a very useful tool for the studio or travel. Just click the link below, and thank you.